Oh, yeah. Welcome in. It's the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show, the Awesemo Fantasy Football Channel. Hope you all had a fantastic extended holiday weekend. I know there were some ups and downs, I'm sure, in your season long. We're here for you. We're here to provide any type of therapy that you need moving forward. Some questions answered. Don't worry. We got you. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed. We have a bunch of injuries, including Christian McCaffrey we have to get to, our most valuable, frustrating players. You know the drill. Usual suspects in the house. Tera is here. Lofty is here. I'm Eytan. Mike Awesemo is producing. And again, we appreciate you all for being here and spending some time with us. Hopefully you both had a great extended holiday weekend, ate up as much as humanly possible. And we're still technically, right? Monday following Thanksgiving on a Thursday, we're still technically in leftover range, right? Or has all that gone? Yeah, Tara's shaking her head. Yes.
Yeah. I think we're still there technically, right? Depending on, I think we can be done with the turkey, but there might be a couple things in there that we can still use.
Yeah, I was at my brother and sister-in-law's. Love them to death. He came over yesterday, watched a disgusting Eagles game with me, and we got a bit tuned up just because how do you watch it otherwise? Yeah, good guy. But I'll tell you, man, we're eating an Italian family, phenomenal food, all of that. And then, his wife, my sister-in-law, comes up to me with this tiny little container for leftovers, and I was blown away, man. I'm used to going home with days worth, but we're gone. We're all out of that. But leftovers are phenomenal, man. If you guys had to do away with one Thanksgiving food, what would it have been?
Well, for me, it's without a doubt, and I don't judge people. Let me preface this. I don't judge people who eat it. I just have never found any use at all. So therefore, it's an easy answer for me for cranberry sauce. Like I'm 42. I've survived 42 Thanksgivings, Tara, without having to put any cranberry sauce on anything. And I'll eat sweet potatoes to the regular mash, to sweet potato pie, to the pumpkin pie, turkey and everything. Lasagna. Lofty mentioned an Italian family. My wife are in, her family Italian. So we do that. More of the pasta as well, but no, for me it would be cranberry sauce.
Okay.
Yeah, my reaction is an agreement. I was surprised.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the exact same one for me.
It's the easiest answer for everybody.
But why is it still there though? Right?
I like it.
We all hate it. See,
I'd get rid of the turkey.
I
wouldn't. You can't. You have to do it. I don't know. Thanksgiving's over. I don't even know why I asked about that. We got a lot to talk about. It made me think, there's always one that nobody's very happy about.
Yeah, look, I think that turkey would definitely be the unpopular one by all means, but you never know.
Most people are not huge on turkey for Thanksgiving. It's just there.
Yeah. Depends on how you cook it.
We deep fried it, which was solid. I mean, it's good. It's good, but it's just like a necessary component. I don't really think anyone looks forward to the turkey. I look forward to the sausage stuffing, the sweet potato bake, the green bean casserole, the pies. Do you look forward to turkey? I don't know.
Yeah, I look forward to. You're out of your mind.
Okay.
The succulent cook, and it could be deep fried, it could be baked, but the succulent, juicy cook of a nice piece of dark meat is something that cannot be matched by chicken, pork, whatever the steak, whatever the hell else protein you want to match up with it. All right. Maybe that's all. That's all I would add.
Fair.
Not letting you get rid of my turkey.
But fair. That's fine.
Go hit a gobbler up at Wawa if you want, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the greatest food ever.
All right. So let's jump into it. We have a lot of injuries here to talk about. We also have, our MVPs and our MFPs. We should do that and then get into McCaffrey. I go the McCaffrey stuff. I guess technically we have Monday Night Football as well, but these injuries are just so big moving forward. So let's look as we normally do at week 12. I don't want to overlook that by any means, as we'll have a lot to jump into with Deebo Samuel right up to Christian McCaffrey. So let's start at least looking back to this past weekend. Hopefully your season-long games and rosters were better than your worst meal having to be stuff-fed turkey, Lofty. But let's start with your MVP, at least for you.
Yeah, it's got to be Leonard Fournette, right? I mean, it has to be. Leonard Fournette was remarkable, and it killed anybody. This was the bad part. Gronk, by the way, has been the tight in the games that Gronk has played this year. He is the tight end too. Make no mistake about it. A healthy Rob Gronkowski is still one of the preeminent tight ends out there. You should be starting him every week unless it's like a Travis Kelce team or so. I think you could make an argument for starting him over a healthy Darren Waller or George Kittle in certain spots right now. I really do. We can talk about that some other time. But man, you got crushed if you had Mike Evans or Chris Godwin yesterday because it was the Leonard Fournette show. It was one of those games where they drive it down inside the 10, inside the 5, and Leonard Fournette would punch it in. And then there were a couple times where it looked like they'd have to throw, and then they'd get a penalty, and it would put him at the goal line, and Leonard Fournette would bring it in again. 3 rushing touchdowns, 100 yards rushing, 7 receptions on 8 targets, no less, for 31 yards and a receiving touchdown. So when you look at Tom Brady's performance on the day, Tom Brady, another one that just killed you if you had him in a game where they put up a ton of points. Even that one touchdown that he threw, it went to the Leonard Fournette. He was involved in every single offensive touchdown they had on the day. They got the win against the good Colts team in Indianapolis. Fournette was spectacular. And if you guys remember, he tweeted last week, he's like, I'm sorry to all my people out there for fantasy. There's just too many stars on this team. And he didn't say it disrespectfully. It's like sometimes, it's just not your day. You're not going to get the ball. Well, apparently Bruce Arians and Tom Brady took note because he got every single ball that was going around in the offense yesterday. Leonard Fournette, my MVP, 4 touchdowns, 131 total yards. Big, big game.
Hard to argue with that. Absolutely. Anybody who had him was rolling. I'm sure he bumped in a bunch of optimal lineups too in the DFS world. All right, Tara, how about you?
Yeah, to start off, I faced Leonard Fournette in literally like 3 or 4 leagues, and it was so it was a painful day for me.
Too.
So, but my MVP is Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle, career day, 9 of 10, 137 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, he's just looking fantastic. And I think it maybe goes overlooked a little when you look at him. He is technically now a wide receiver 1. He is a top 12 wide receiver statistically in PPR. He is killing it lately. And just the level of consistency that he's had when fluctuating between Tua to Gaskin, or to slipping my mind right there, but to Jacoby Brissett. But he's just been so steady. And when you look at him, I know we had a lot of offseason debate between, is it going to be Waddle that steps forward? Is it going to be Devonta Smith? Which one is going to be the better rookie receiver? And, it turned out it was funny. Endlessly, the only one who is able to get the ball consistency to their receiver is actually Tua. So, it's very interesting just seeing how Tua has been able to deliver the ball to his superstar so consistently, and Waddle has just been an absolute rock. When he's getting these fantastic matchups against subpar defenses, he's turning it out from a high efficiency standpoint, high yardage. He is getting touchdowns. He's just stepping up to someone that looking forward. You get that argument between him, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Elijah Moore slipping in there as well. It's going to be really cool to see how these rookies move forward in their career. Yeah,
Waddle looked great. And Tua completed like 90% or something crazy of his passes. Mm-hmm. They looked really good. And it sucks, because you're looking for that. If you're an Eagles fan, you're looking for that higher pick, but Miami went from one of those teams. And this is why you have to be aware of what's happening throughout the season. Miami looked awful earlier in the year when we all thought that they would compete and get a playoff spot. That's exactly why they were willing to trade picks, right? We'll give them a late 1st round pick. And they were horrible through the first couple months of the year. Their defense looks markedly better. Their offense is starting to come together. And their defense, we got to talk about Cam Newton at some point, right? Because that was unbelievable. But yeah, Tua and Waddle and Gaskin with another solid game, finally getting that usage. Miami's one of those teams that I've been sticking with throughout the year, and it's finally starting to pay off. So I'm with you. I think you could have given the MVP to a couple guys on Miami yesterday, maybe the whole offense, for the way they've been putting things together.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for another plug here, Odd Shopper was all over Tua props, and that thing was cashing left and right. So hopefully people take advantage of that. That's free up there for you. So I'll slide mine in. And for me, it was Myles Gaskin. I still lost the week, but it was Myles Gaskin for me. And it's amazing because he's kind of like what Michigan State was, or, like you see this a lot in college where it's a team, and in the NFL to an extent as well, where it's a team that's successful, even though the metrics will tell you that they're not and that they shouldn't be. And, Gaskin's 2 touchdowns clearly saves a shitty day without that. And you look back, even before, he's got 3 of his last 4 games, at least 15 points total. And the production, when you just look at it without looking at his points, the production is really shit outside of a touchdown here. They're saving it. And then even back before that, if you wanted to add 4 of his last 6 games, hitting at least 15 points. So nearly 20 points. You mentioned, what was able to be done in the air. So I'll just add Myles Gaskin for me as far as the one reason why I was even in this week.
Gaskin's been great. Yeah, I mean, all of those guys have been very good. For least valuable player, I have to go obviously to Miles Sanders. And if I've mispronounced your name, forgive me, but he said, "Yep, Sanders sucked again. When are you guys going to stop touting him?" And my answer, probably never at this point. I have to go. This is the Titanic, and I'm the band. Okay. I'm going to keep singing those Miles Sanders songs until there's nothing left in the pipes, but I don't know what to say anymore. I really don't. He averaged 7.1 yards per attempt. He broke off 2 long runs again. I guess he hurt his ankle, but it's like he wasn't involved in the 2-minute drill. Sirianni once again went away from what they've been good at. So if you want nothing to do with Miles Sanders anymore, I don't blame you. This was the opportunity. He had 16 for 94 in his return. Then Jordan Howard went down. They went up against the Giants. They've been running 43.5 times per game. I will take the L on anything. You want to blame me for it? That's perfectly fine. I'm used to it. But if you can't see some of the appeal to playing to Miles Sanders yesterday, given how this team had set up, given that they were favored on the road, running 50 times the week prior to that, losing Jordan Howard, I don't know what to say, but it sucks. He's been bad. And he hasn't been bad. They just won't use him appropriately.
They won't use him. Yeah.
And then he suffers an injury. So I will be playing him this week against the Jets. If he's out there, I don't expect you to, and wouldn't blame you if you went against me. That's all I can say.
It's such a weird situation because the Eagles seem so committed to the committee, and yet they won't make him technically the lead of the committee, even at that. So I don't get it. Maybe the ankle injury had a little something to do with him coming in and out of the game and missing something. But yeah, it's a highly disappointing game, in my opinion.
Yeah. No one says Miles Sanders RB is like Pat's running backs under Belichick. It's not true. Bill Belichick ran LeGarrette Blount for the second most carries in the league that one year. He ran Sony Michel for like top 5 in carries in his rookie season. The season after that, he was top 10 in carries. If Bill Belichick finds a guy that he's willing to run out there, he'll absolutely do it. Damien Harris, before Ramondre Stevenson started getting started looking better, before Damien Harris got hurt, he was averaging 18 carries per game between weeks 5 and 9. So no, he's not going to go. If he finds a guy he really likes, he'll go with him. Nick Sirianni just doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to the backfield, if you ask me.
Yeah, which is hard to factor the injury in there, because it's like, well, even if he was healthy, we don't know what would happen moving forward. All right, we'll come back to that, because I have something I want to insert later when we talk about week 12 waiver wire pickups. But Tara, let's go to your most frustrating player.
Yeah, for me, it's a tandem. It's the Cleveland running backs. And this was kind of hard for me because I wanted to go, maybe even the Detroit or the Broncos receivers. Then you mentioned Cam as well. But when I look at these Cleveland running backs and what we expect of them, that's what made them the most frustrating players of the week for me. Nick Chubb, 8 carries, 16 yards. I can't even fathom a world where I could have imagined that would happen.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy. 2 of 4 for receptions. And then you have Kareem Hunt, not a single reception, 7 carries. It was just kind of wild. And then on the opposite end, you have Baker that threw the ball 37 times, which was a season high for him. And he wasn't exactly efficient with it, less than 50% completion rating. So from that perspective, it was just kind of confusing. Kevin Stefanski, he's a great coach, but I don't really get what they were doing. Even if the run is struggling, it's still Nick Chubb. It's still Kareem Hunt. You still commit to it. I can't imagine abandoning the run with that level of players. His previous low was 61 yards. This was just the wildest week for me, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you want to know what's even worse is Jack Conklin, their star tackle, is probably, it looks like he's done for the year.
Yeah,
and he has a top 10 run blocking grade on PFF. Can they replace him? Do they still have decent run blocking? Yeah, but that's a big loss right there, and it can't go overlooked. So you get Kareem Hunt back, number one, which hurts Nick Chubb to begin with. And I know, Tara, you said both, of course, but like if you're just looking at Chubb, who was an early pick, now you have Kareem Hunt back, and of course, Chubb missed those games when Hunt was out, so you didn't even benefit from that. It was Dearness Johnson, and now Jack Conklin's out. This is an ugly recipe right now. And the worst part is, and we've talked about this so often, when Cleveland gets is playing from behind, and this defense isn't stymieing opponents, they can't play catch up. They can't. They're not any good at it. No, they suck at it.
Yeah,
because they rely on 40 rushing attempts per game. So if you're not getting it going on the ground, and you can't rely on Baker Mayfield, I know they're using this. He's banged up, but it doesn't matter. Excuse. If you can't play from behind, this run game and both of these guys in the backfield are really going to struggle unless they get incorporated more into the passing game. And I don't think you can trust that right now. I'm legitimately scared about the Browns backfield. No doubt about it, unless they have very easy matchups.
Yeah. And they didn't even get blown out. Lamar threw 4 picks.
That was wild.
Yeah. And that's what I think is so scary about this. And look, I have Chubb and him not doing much. Like, if you didn't jump on that, Tara, he definitely would be my MFP this week. Here's the problem that I and anybody else who's rostering has. He's already had 3 bye weeks, and now you're going into a bye week. He's already missed 3 games. So add everything that Lofty just said, which is a major concern as far as just shares and touches that you have moving forward. Now you have to deal with the 4th time this year that you can't play Nick Chubb. It's beyond frustrating.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's worse than MFP. All right, I'll end this here with mine. And I did see somebody else sharing my misery here. Kicks plug on the chat. Hit that thumbs up, please, if you haven't already. When you arrive, do that. Make sure you're subscribed as well here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. He says, Mike Evans killed me, all caps with emoji. Same here for me. It was not, I'm not willing to give up. He's not being benched, nothing like that. But when I see 38-31, and the Bucs are handling their offense, at least is clicking, and Mike Evans goes 3 for 16. It's hard for 5 targets, still hard for me to think that he wasn't the most frustrating for me, at least.
He was brutal. They just didn't need him. It was one of those strange games. Mind you, they won.
Right. Right.
They what did they put up 38 points?
Yeah, 38-31. That's what I say. Like, you look at that score, 38-31, and you have the 1 or 1A, and you only get 5 points. What the hell?
Yeah.
Dude,
and it was
on Yahoo, Godwin had minus 0.3 fantasy points in the 4th quarter.
And it was such a weird game because it's not like it was, let's say if they were going to get New England and you say, okay, well, that's a fantastic pass defense. Maybe they struggled. Indianapolis is a team that in theory they should have been throwing on. So it made sense. This should have been a big game for Brady, for Godwin, for Mike Evans, for Gronk. And for some odd reason, it went the opposite direction of what it should have been.
It was truly strange. And Brady was 25 of 34. It's not like he was, it completed 45% of his passes. No, he completed, he was perfectly fine in terms of completion rating. Gronk had a solid game, and Fournette did all of the work towards the end zone. So keep playing Mike Evans. You're fine. Keep playing Godwin, Gronk, Fournette. The one thing, and this is an extreme outlier when both Evans and Godwin have a bad game and they drop 38 points against the pass funnel defense, like Tara said. But when you go into the season every year, you have to know that if you're drafting Evans, if you're drafting Antonio Brown's not even on the field. Imagine if he was. Right. If you're drafting Brown, if you're drafting Godwin, even Gronk to some extent, he's a little bit later, but if he was playing like this, we'd have been drafting him a lot higher, above Higbee and such. You have to know that there's going to be games, hopefully not like this, but games where 1 or 2 of those guys just aren't really used.
For sure.
Yeah, no, it's the give and take of it as well. And it's an interesting segue here. As we look at Monday night, we will get into these injuries coming up in a minute. Just bear with us as we look briefly at what's going on tonight. You have usual guys that have to be rostered, right? We're not going to sit Russell Wilson, Metcalf, or Lockett on the other side. You've got McLaurin. I'm running with Gibson. I don't know what's going on. And Tara, I'm curious, like, what do you do? Is McKissick somebody that you're looking to get to tonight? Is he someone that if you have a pivot, you're racing to get out of that spot?
It's not ideal at the very least, at least it's against Seattle's defense that has been struggling as a whole, but I'm starting him in one incredibly deep league. Outside of that, I am pivoting away. I would rather go with Gibson. It seems like he's on a trend to just, being a little bit better. I know he's not completely healed, but I'm having a hard time trusting McKissick when he's not getting those targets. When I look at him, it's been a while since he's seen those double-digit targets, even 8+ targets. And when he's not getting those, he's of low value. So I think we're seeing, unfortunately, the emergence of some secondary receiving options like DeAndre Carter, and Sims as well as stepping up. And I think it's just taking away of that value from McKissick.
Yeah, absolutely. And since the bye week and since Gibson has been seemingly healthy, because remember, he was dealing with that, what was it? Shin something?
Fractured shin.
Yeah. Since he was dealing with that, a stress fracture, I think it was, in his shin. Since he's been off the injury report since the bye week, he has all but 2 of the red zone carries, every carry inside the 5, every carry inside the 10. And the only 2 haven't gone to JD McKissick either. The only 2 that Gibson haven't gone to JD McKissick. They've gone to Jarrett Patterson. So Gibson is the clear guy. He has 43 carries over the last 4 weeks. I'm with you. The McKissick right now, you have to be wondering what his role is going to be limited to. And we saw earlier in the year where he was actually out there for a lot of snaps, but he was blocking on most of them and not even running a lot of routes. So I think, Gibson is one of those guys today. You kind of just have to play him. You don't really have an alternative. You hope that the game script stays neutral or positive. They went from 1-point favorites to 1-point dogs, but at home, this should be close. What's more intriguing to me is what to do with Russell Wilson right now. He has looked awful in 2 games since returning to action. I'm not saying he's had the greatest matchups against Arizona and Green Bay, but Russell Wilson has looked very bad. I mean, in one game, they had like 200 total yards of offense. So it's further compounded when you wonder, okay, what do I do with DK Metcalf, who I drafted in the 2nd round? What do I do with Tyler Lockett, who I drafted in the 3rd round? How do I approach these guys? What do I do with Alex Collins now that DJ Dallas appears to be getting more work, even though Rashad Penny and Travis Homer are out for tonight's game? This is a mess of a Seattle team. And if you have alternatives, I hope you already started them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm looking at the running backs. That's the one that concerns me the most, because I've just felt so uncomfortable with rolling out Alex Collins. And it gets, as those options start dwindling down, you're kind of almost forced to have to start looking at him and, how are we ranking him? Are we putting him over others? But when you look at it, I mean, he's someone that's getting you like 5 fantasy points a game. That's just not something. He doesn't have a ton of upside at all, not in this offense, not when players are out. So it's such a weird situation of having an RB1 technically that you're just fading on a regular basis.
Yeah, if you think Seattle is down too and stands a good chance of playing from behind, that's going to limit Collins. That's going to limit Dallas clearly from a run standpoint. Now, we have him projected on site. Alex has him projected at 65.5. That's factored into a pretty high bet. If you could get him on Odd Shopper in that 44, it's up a lot of spots to 50, but that may not be enough, right? You may have to be touchdown dependent at that point for Alex Collins to make sense. How deep and desperate of a situation do you need to be to roster DJ Dallas tonight? Lofty, you mentioned him as far as getting some love. We still have Collins projected for a decent night, but there's so much chatter around Dallas.
I'll say this much. If you're a Dalvin Cook owner and someone has Alexander Madison, or you're a Christian McCaffrey owner and somebody already has Chuba Hubbard, and we can talk about all this, I might scoop DJ Dallas up tonight if I can and just throw him on the bench, because last week he was out there for the final drive, their last scoring drive that made it a 1-possession game, a 1-score game. And he got the goal line carry that he scored on from 2 yards out. Maybe it's not significant. I don't know, but it seems relatively significant. He ran more routes than Alex Collins last game. He was targeted twice. Collins didn't see, I don't believe, a single target. And now you're down 2 other guys. Of course, Penny's out again and Travis Homer's out. Those guys were actually getting snaps. If this is just a 2-headed backfield and DJ Dallas happens to be Pete Carroll's guy going forward, used in the passing game as well, you might need to flex him. I don't want to flex him tonight, because there's not enough to go off of. But you wouldn't have been talking about playing Dontrell Hilliard the other day either. The only reason they brought him up is because they cut Adrian Peterson and Derrick Henry went down. So yeah, and Jeremy McNichols went out as well. So yeah, I think Dallas might be a guy that you stash at the bottom of your bench. And if you're desperate with all of these insane injuries we've seen, there could be more. He might be a guy that if he does take over and starts playing 70, 65% of snaps in this offense, you might have to sooner or later. I don't like it. Nobody should like it, but sometimes those flex spots, you need to make it. And there's still bye weeks coming up all the way through week 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think the difference there as well, you mentioned the 2 targets, which isn't a ton, but I think if we look back, he's had a game where he did have 5. So we do know he has that ability. He can see targets. I don't think that we've seen Alex Collins get very many, if all. So maybe the upside is over there from a PPR perspective, if they can get going and actually have some success out of Russell Wilson. We talked about on that end, and he's just been significantly struggling. It's hard to sit Russell Wilson if you've got better options, but there are good streaming options out there. Obviously you would already have had to start Tua, but there's guys like Tua that's out there who, when they're playing, when they're healthy, they're just a lot better options than going ahead and going with Russell Wilson, who's been struggling.
All right, let's look at some injury news here, and this is going to be impacting not only this week but the rest of the season. Lofty, you mentioned it. McCaffrey out for the year. Chat talking about it here as well. Hubbard was brought up, so I guess that's the easy conversation now: is how trustworthy is a Carolina Panthers offense that hasn't looked great with him back, didn't look great outside of like a week maybe with Cam. It just looks like things have gone to shit with our old pal Matt Rule down there. So without McCaffrey, is there anything? Like, what happens to Hubbard's value? What happens to DJ Moore now? Cam, anything at the quarterback spot without having somebody so integral to that team's success?
Yeah, this is a tough one because McCaffrey, he just absolutely killed us yesterday, right? If you had Christian McCaffrey and you're looking at that 3.5 fantasy points, you're just thinking, my God, this can't get any worse, right? The crazy thing is Chuba Hubbard was the guy earlier in the year when McCaffrey went down. You had Royce Freeman behind him. Royce Freeman's gone now. Where is he? Where was he getting carries for yesterday, Tara? I can't even remember.
He's
Not
got
Denver, right? No,
he's from Denver.
Right. Texans.
Houston. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But it was Amir Abdullah who also got work yesterday. Now, I don't know. He did outsnap Chuba Hubbard. He was targeted 6 times, but they were getting crushed. So I'm not really sure how much of that has to do with just them getting lit up or with the fact that they don't like Chuba Hubbard. But the way I see it is you have to think, right, that this coaching staff looks at this and says, well, we drafted Chuba Hubbard this year. He was the guy when McCaffrey went down. We're not a good team. Let's just see what we have in him. We know what we have in Amir Abdullah. That's pretty obvious, right? The guy's been around, he's been bounced around since 2015. He's never established himself as a quality back. So I still think if you're grabbing one of these guys, it's got to be Chuba Hubbard. If you're in a super deep league, maybe you go with Abdullah. But I think, if you get into some competitive spots and you're not down by however many points like they were last game, that Hubbard probably still gets more opportunities than Abdullah. But yeah, it's a bad offense right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The only issue that I have, unfortunately, is when I look at, we've got a bye week coming up, then we've got Atlanta. So I think you're only getting really 1 week, because then you look at that and we get Buffalo, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. It's going to be rough. And when we look back at Chuba's numbers, he was getting decent work in the right matchups. He was producing, but it wasn't anywhere near a CMC level. So I kind of wonder how much are we really going to be able to get out of him closing out the season. I do agree with you with that. He's the one that we do need to roster between the two.
But you're right. It's no Mike Davis of last year with Christian McCaffrey out.
Now, this has come up before. I think the 3 of us specifically had this conversation. Then he came back and now he's hurt again. So Tara, let's start and focus a little bit more on what you do with McCaffrey in dynasty leagues.
It's tough, because if you can find somebody that wants to get McCaffrey, that wants to, obviously there may be someone who's out of contention, because it's not going to be a usable asset this year. But unfortunately, you don't want to sell him super low because it is CMC.
Right.
In theory, when he's healthy, you know exactly what you're getting out of him. But I think at this point, we got a preview of what's happening, and he might be on that same trajectory as Todd Gurley, where the health and the workload just becomes way too much of an issue for him to move forward through a full season. So yeah, I think that if you can bail out at the right price, if not, you might have to hold on and just kind of wait for people to forget in off season everything that's going on, unfortunately. But he's not someone that I would be looking to buy. That's for sure right now.
Yeah. My only pushback there is Todd Gurley was a knee, and like Jamal Charles was the ACL. And it sucks that McCaffrey deals with these lingering injuries, whether it's a hammy or a groin or an ankle. What's that?
It's soft tissue.
Yeah. But at the same time, 2017, 16 games played, 2018, 16 games played, 2019, 16 games played. Yeah, he's getting a little bit older. I get that. He's got a decent workload under his belt. I'm holding tight here because I don't want to. Let me ask you this: where are you drafting Christian McCaffrey next year in a redraft league or in a dynasty start? Now, forget about a dynasty startup. Where are you drafting him in a redraft league?
Yeah, I think for redraft, we had that that great debate going on. Is it still CMC or is it now Jonathan Taylor? Yeah. I think when you look at all of the guys there, you say we've got Dalvin Cook, we've got Derrick Henry. They're all guys that are of a similar age, a similar workload with CMC. And so I think, the argument of either one of them jumping him, I don't think it's extremely strong, but I do see a scenario where I'm okay with going with Jonathan Taylor. I think that finally Indianapolis understands that any given situation, they need to be funneling the ball to him. They need to be a run first team. He can sit there and he can go through defenses that are extremely strong. So I'm comfortable with him at the 101 next year. I'm not fading McCaffrey back extremely far though, when you look at those other options.
So yeah, Alvin Kamara is on an offense that we don't know when it's going to get better. We don't know what Michael Thomas is, what his future looks like. Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, he might be playing, but he's clearly banged up. They're talking about shutting him down, right? Yep. Who else?
Barkley has fallen off.
Barkley. Dude, I wouldn't draft Barkley in the first round at all next year.
Not at all.
I don't know if I'd draft him in the second at this rate, and he's always hurt. So, and Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's banged up all the time too. Maybe not to the same extent, but he's missed some games now. He's going to miss more. He might be on the IR. Very possible that Dalvin Cook hits the IR.
Look, so I'll throw Chubb in there too, just with the frustration of who's around him and your point about that offense not being able to come back.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be drafting him all the way up there, but yes, he's another one. Yeah. So I'm looking at my top 4 running backs in no specific order, probably Jonathan Taylor won though, and tell me if you guys agree, Taylor, McCaffrey, might go Derrick Henry ahead of him. I'm not worried about that foot. Yeah. And Eckler. I think Eckler's got to be in the top 4 right now.
For sure.
Consistency at the quarterback spot for Eckler. I think the two of your biggest points together is almost like.
Oh, and I'm sorry. Eytan.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Kicks plug mentioned Mixon. Listen, if that offense continues to improve, yes, I would not be against putting Mixon inside the top 5 at his position. Dude's a stud, getting a ton of work. Remember weeks ago, we're worried about Samaje Perine? He might be top 5 too. Yeah, I like that.
No, it's true, man. I think the difference now this year maybe is that you're not disappointed if you can't get McCaffrey first overall. Yeah. It used to be like for a couple of years in a row, oh shit, I can't get McCaffrey number 1. That's changed. That's definitely dropped. Let's hit Debo real quick. We'll start to look at some stuff moving forward. Again, hit that thumbs up button, please. If you're hanging with us, make sure you're subscribed as well. It does us wonders here on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We appreciate that. I'm in this position now where I have Debo and was a big vehicle of my success in the Awesemo C League by all means. He's going to miss some time, a little time, at the very least next week, that game against Seattle. So at this point, though, I guess I'm curious, and Lofty, we can start with you, Tara, as well. What happens with this offense? It feels like outside of Kittle here or there, the only real consistent part of me of the I think I tried to conflate 2 words, point and part. The only consistent point that you could go to in this offense was Debo, even if he was doing it on the ground. I know Brandon Ayuk has now stepped up as of recent, but the backfield, it seems like this offense has been so difficult to pin down, except for Samuel more so than not. Now what happens?
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's not a lot of consistency in it, but it is producing. So basically the way I look at it is with whoever is healthy, whoever is on the field, they're going to produce. So, we've got Brandon Ayuk out there who's being very steady in his targets now. We've got Kittle, who didn't have a particularly fantastic day, but I think he's someone that we can still rely on. And then when I look at that running back game, the most encouraging part for me is that I love the fact that we've got 27 carries. And I think this is the second time. Isn't this the second time that's happened with Elijah Mitchell?
And he's bounced right back into a huge role. He's consistent too. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm loving that direction. So he might actually be the most dependable person in this offense, provided that he's healthy moving forward. But I think they have a lot of pieces and a lot of talents and ways that they can, manipulate where they get the offense from.
I'm with you 100%. Let me tell you something. Elijah Mitchell right now, if you drafted this guy, this is one spot I've gotten very lucky in, maybe somewhat skill, some just being fortunate in dynasty leagues is, when people love Jamal Williams and overdrafted him, you could have got Aaron Jones late, right? In that same draft. This happens a lot where everyone gets hooked on one guy. It turns out being another guy. Trey Sermon went super early. I'm not knocking anybody for taking him. I get that. But you could have got Eli Mitchell very late. And in rookie leagues, that was one of the guys that I took a dart throw on in a lot of leagues. And it just so happened to work out. I couldn't be happier with it. And Tera's spot on. Like if there's one consistent piece outside of Debo, and I'm not worried about Kittle. I still love Kittle. He's still a stud. It's Eli Mitchell. How could you be any more confident right now? And people go, oh yeah, it's Shanahan's offense. He could change on a dime. He could have done that 18 times when Mitchell got banged up, and he hasn't. I've been worried every time Mitchell has come back that he wouldn't be the guy, and he returns to a massive workload. So, I mean, look at his carries over the last couple of weeks. He didn't play in week 11, got 27 carries in week 12. And then 27 in week 10. Let me tell you, this is the craziest part about Eli Mitchell, though, and why I'm so excited about him and why next year, assuming everything remains constant, you guys should love him. He wasn't running routes even. He wasn't getting targeted at all. He had 4 targets through the first 8 weeks. Well, now over his last 3 games, wasn't targeted against the Rams because they were up and he got 27 carries. So why would he need it? Against Arizona, where they were down and they needed to throw, he was targeted 5 times, caught all of them for 43 yards. Yesterday against Minnesota, 27 carries, but 6 targets and 5 receptions for 35 yards. I mean, that is 33 total looks for Eli Mitchell. Be excited about this guy right now. Shanahan likes him. You should too.
Completely
that doesn't
agree.
change. I'm sorry, Tara.
No, I was just saying completely agree.
That doesn't change with Debo coming back.
He'll go to it more when he comes
no.
back.
My point, and this was, I guess, the comment I was going to make, Luffy, to what you were saying. So feel free. It doesn't change drastically. Yes, it's going to increase right now with Debo out. Let's say Debo's out 2 to 3 weeks, what have you, 1 to 2 weeks, whatever. Then clearly what you laid out grows exponentially, but they still have enough in a game to hit Mitchell. It's not like it should drop exponentially with Debo coming back, right?
This is a run-first team. They've always wanted to be a run-first team. Yeah, and last year, people, it maddened me where people were like, yeah, well, look how much they had to throw last year. Their whole team was hurt. They had no choice. The defense was banged up. They had to throw. Go back 2 years ago where they were in the Super Bowl. They ran at the second highest clip behind only Baltimore. And the only reason Baltimore ran more than them was because they have Lamar Jackson. If you look at actual running back carries, this team is running at one of the highest clips in the league, and they want to. So yeah, I'm all for it. Like, Tara, you've got to be semi-high on Elijah Mitchell for next year too, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Any running back that is getting that level of volume, no matter how many different bodies are rotating in there, whether it's Jeff Wilson, who did see success last year. So it's not like these are, trash guys that are rotating in. We've seen them do very well. And Shanahan still believes in this guy specifically. So it does make sense.
Yeah. He season high 70% of snaps yesterday.
That's insane. So your buddy Known on the chat had a question, and I don't know if it was just trolling you, Luffy, or if it was a serious question.
That's
here.
not my buddy.
No, I know. I say that. You didn't pick up the sarcasm tone when I used that term. Now, Would you trade Miles for Madison based on what we know with Dalvin Cook, assuming that he is cooked for the rest of the season?
Yeah.
You have to, right?
Well, yeah, because Madison, you can rely on the workload. Like the Eagles have a better running game than the Vikings. They do. It's just like, look at the numbers, right? They have a better line. But Jason Kelce, I don't know what's going on with that knee injury either. That backup center stunk.
Yeah.
I would do it. Yeah. But don't do like if he's probably not Sanders is probably not one of your top starters at this point. So yeah, why not run the risk? I would, even if Cook is out a couple of weeks, I would. Did they have their bye week yet? They did, right? I think like week 5 or something.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, I can tell you now. They had the bye week 7.
What's their upcoming schedule?
Well, right now they have
Lions and Steelers.
And then at Chicago.
Yeah.
That's 3 straight games. Those are 3 straight winnable games. Now they're hosting the Steelers on Thursday Night Football, so they have a little bit of an advantage there against Pittsburgh on a short week. And then they're in Chicago Monday night. Come on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I would do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
Not to jump the gun, but I mean, I think when you look at the stats when he's been that lead back, I mean, it's not even close. So yeah, I would take that risk and do it.
Just so you know, when you do that, Sanders is going to pop off for a 200-yard free touchdown game. I'm letting you know right now it's happening against the Jets. I will go back to Miles Sanders in DFS and in fantasy this week. I won't go back to him if I don't have to. If you have better, everything has to be in context. If you have better options, you're not starting Miles. Like if you picked up Cordarrelle Patterson, yeah, you're playing Cordarrelle Patterson over Miles Sanders. But if it's like Ty Johnson or Miles Sanders, yeah, very simple decision there. One team is just better with a better run offense against a awful Jets team. So, put it in context. Be smart.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I'm waiting for Lepre in the chat to remind the entire planet that myself and RC yesterday scoffed at the notion on the fantasy football show leading up to lock of starting Patterson over Sanders. So can't hit them all by all means. Can't hit them all. All right. I just think, look, it was there. The carries were there. The opportunities were there.
Yeah.
Patterson's a stud right now. It took him 2 decades, but here he is. He's arrived.
All right, we're going to play a little game here. Stick or sit, right? We'll start with the sticks and then move to the sits. This is another lofty creation, so you know it's going to be fun here. And why don't you start, Dave, just to kind of open things up and explain. Basically, the stick, somebody who's been struggling that you're not going to give up on. Obviously, the opposite would be sit, where somebody is struggling and you're just willing to push the eject button. So why don't you start? We'll move to Tara, and then I'll slide mine in.
Yeah, are we sticking with them or are we sitting them in it? And I've got a good one for you. This might be a guy that you haven't even been starting, or you have been because you were ill-advised and drafted him in the 6th round, Javonte Williams. Now, Melvin Gordon is still getting work. Okay. Let's not ignore that. But this is the time of year where you start looking towards these guys like Javonte Williams, right? Who the Broncos traded up to get in the 2nd round. Melvin Gordon, likely not going to be around much longer. Denver, yes, they're actually still, they won yesterday, which was a shock, right? But that's because we have no idea what teams are good anymore. I think you begin to see a guy like Javonte Williams start getting more opportunities. He played a season-high 58% of snaps last week. Last game, he played 57% of snaps, which was a season and obviously a career high before that. So now back-to-back games with season-high snap counts, 57 and 58%. Yes, Melvin Gordon still saw some work, but you saw Javonte Williams get some carries near the goal line. He got into the end zone. All of those things are very encouraging. This could be the time where you begin to see him take off. He had 3 receptions on 4 targets for 57 yards. So he had 18 total looks, 111 total yards. I like all of that. And then if you look at their schedule, right? If you look at the Broncos' upcoming schedule, you have the Chiefs. Do you love that? No, the Chiefs defense is better, but they're still not as good as they've looked in recent games. And then you have the Lions and Bengals. these are some good spots for them taking you into the playoffs. So if you need a flex guy or like an RB3, depending on what league you're in, Javonte Williams to me is a guy that I'm going to be sticking with. I think this is where you begin to see more work, more production, and better efficiency, and more work in the passing game.
Like it.
Yeah, for me, so mine is not someone who's been struggling, but someone that you might be inclined to no longer stick with because Aaron Jones is back. I am telling you to stick with AJ Dillon, even though Aaron Jones is back and probably will be a little bit more healthy and look better after the Packers bye week. But my reasoning here with AJ Dillon is that he has looked absolutely fantastic when he's given the opportunity. He just presents a different, well, obviously a different body type, but a different style of running, a bruiser, someone who's getting through the line. And he's still shifty. He's still pretty shifty as well and able to catch passes. But I think that when we look at this Green Bay backfield, I think that we're going to be seeing both of these running backs being utilized, maybe even in a 50-50 split, both very usable because they're doing it with different purposes. I think we're going to be getting a pretty good floor out of AJ Dillon, and I'm not afraid to stick with him moving forward, even with Aaron Jones back in the lineup.
I like that. And while he wasn't super productive on the ground yesterday, if you watch that game, he had some runs that you could argue, decidedly changed the direction of that game. Some 3rd and shorts, right? Some 4th and shorts that he powered through a really tough interior defense for the Rams and got not only the first down, but picked up 3 or 4 additional yards and carried defenders. Coaches like those guys. And he was drafted in the 2nd round as well, much to the dismay of most of these Packers fans out there in Green Bay. They took him in the 2nd round and they clearly plan on using him. You're right about Dillon. And if Jones isn't at full capacity still, Dillon, I mean, what did he have? 25 total touches yesterday, 5 targets as well.
Mm-hmm. He's doing it through the air as well. And
a receiving touchdown. Those receptions for running backs, even if you get like 4 or 5 targets a game, that's a lot for a guy that's getting a bell cow workload, which is why Eli Mitchell is also so appealing.
Yeah. And when you look at, so it was 5 of 5 for 21 yards, but when, again, it's the Rams defense, but when you look back at those prior 3 games, he's not getting dink and dump offs and then, laying down for 1 or 3 yards. No, he is someone who's out there and he's making things happen. He's getting upwards of 40 yards. So I think it's just, it's a perfect combination for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we see this too, where a guy goes down, starter goes down, the 1A guy is productive, and now it's on LaFleur, who I don't have any problem having confidence in finding a way to continue to use Dillon out there. There's nothing that would indicate that he would move in the back. I like that. Still thinking outside the box, not somebody who's struggling, but somebody who could be moving away from that. All right, I'm going to slide my guy in here, and I have no choice because he's my only tight end, but there is a little bit of circumstance that surrounds this, but I can't quit Tyler Higbee just yet. I know that he had a rough one. He's still getting the targets. And that's the thing. If you look at it, 5, 10 before that, the floor seems to be in that 3, maybe 4 range. So if you can get to that 5.5, 6.5 target range per game, it's still hard with this offense. And here's the thing. I know people are going to say right away, well, come on, you added Beckham, all of the different things going on with this offense, all of the different threats. I actually think at some point the pendulum swings back and it starts to open things up for Higbee, who's going to be less looked at from a defense as somebody like Beckham. We saw Van Jefferson explode up in the air, and you continue to have Cooper Kupp, who's just dominant. So that's where I'm just slightly reluctant to quit on Tyler Higbee.
I get it. You probably don't have many alternatives.
I don't have any alternatives.
Yeah. Like if you were able to land Gronk, that's somebody that you're playing over Higbee every single week, right? But it's not like Jared Cook has been all that spectacular week to week, right? And Dallas Goedert in a low volume passing offense. Like they're trying to get this guy involved in screens yesterday behind the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of tight ends that have just not really performed. Higbee is definitely one of them. There's no doubt about that, but he played 100% of snaps yesterday. He's on the field for every single play of the game. And the only concern here is Matthew Stafford really that banged up? He was 21 for 38. Yeah, he got over the 300-yard mark, threw 3 touchdowns yesterday and made some good plays, but he doesn't look himself right now. The positive, though, is if they are going to struggle, they're going to be playing from behind. They're going to have to abandon the run, and he's going to have to throw more.
Yep. All right. Let's move it back. We'll flip it right back and go sits. Now let's go on who you've just had it with. You've had enough.
Go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, for me, it's gonna be. I guess we'll stick with tight ends. I'm going with Hunter Henry. It's weird for him. He went from someone who he's getting a touchdown every single game. We're rolling him out there, and when those touchdowns disappear, he's not usable at all. We've got Jonnu Smith that's coming back in there healthy. And when I'm looking at a game where he's getting 2 receptions, no touchdowns, I don't want that hole in my lineup when you can just go with someone else, like maybe a Cole Kmet, who is more inclined to get enough targets, even if he's not getting those red zone looks, unfortunately, because of Jimmy Graham, but we're not going to talk about that. But with Hunter Henry, I'm pivoting somewhere else. I'm not going to stick with it. I'm not going to sit there and just cross my fingers that he's going to get a touchdown.
Yeah, you can't. And they're another team that just wants to run the ball. They have a great defense. There's not a lot of passing volume there. It's not great at all. And Hunter Henry is running a lot more routes than Jonnu Smith, but Jonnu Smith over the last 2 weeks since he returned has run 19 routes to Henry's 42, but they have the same amount of receptions and Henry only has 2 more targets. And Jonnu Smith is a legitimate red zone threat. Go look at the red zone targets this year. Jonnu Smith, before getting hurt, was leading the team along with Hunter Henry. They were tied with like 9. So yeah, that I don't like that at all. I'm with you. Hunter Henry, unless you're desperate, if without a touchdown, Hunter Henry is essentially useless. And a lot of tight ends are the same way. For me, this is a little bit different, but if you can, you might want to sit Saquon Barkley right now. It sounds crazy, right? But he just doesn't look good. He does not look strong. He's in the passing game, not breaking off big plays. He did have, I think it was 1 solid catch and run yesterday, but ultimately they're going to have some difficult matchups that he's going to have to face. The Dolphins defense looks a lot better. Yes, the Chargers run defense is penetrable. They're not good, but I don't really know if it matters with how bad this offensive line is. The biggest thing for the Giants, before you guys pile on here, this offensive line is atrocious. They're so bad. And I could give you myriad examples of good running backs running behind bad offensive lines, and it makes them look bad. Or I could give you a ton of examples of good offensive lines propping up league average to below league average running backs. And we just go back to when Todd Gurley went out in 2018 and who came, CJ Anderson got cut by the Panthers, comes in and has back-to-back huge games. Jordan Howard's bounced around on practice squads for several years now, comes into Philadelphia and he's breaking off 12, 15 yards at a time. I'm serious. I could keep going on with Dontrell Hilliard in Tennessee. We don't have time, but you could keep going. The offensive line it's paramount to a good run game, and they don't have it, and they don't have a good passing game, and they don't have good pass blocking. I think if you can get better options in there, like I'm starting again, Cordell Patterson over Barkley every single week. Might sound crazy, but I am.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think that big run that he had was like for 32 yards. And then I came back and he had a total of 40 yards. And I was highly confused how exactly that happened when you've got 13 carries. So it was a very odd situation with him. The production is just not there.
Every play is like a loss of yardage or maybe about like a yard or 2 against a decent defense.
Yeah, it's like Barry Sanders without having that one huge run every like 7th run.
Yeah.
Right. It's just without that.
That's why you got to stick with Miles Sanders, man. Miles Sanders, LaShawn McCoy are those 2 guys where just keep giving them the ball. Like you said, Sanders, is the all-time leader for most rushes for negative yards.
Yeah. But you were guaranteed every week.
Yeah.
That breakup. But you're right. You just had to keep feeding him and feeding him. At some point it would happen. All right. I'm done feeding Mike Williams to the point now where I can't even take a risk anymore. And I'm looking at the trajectory of this season for Williams. And it's like me, and Lofty can attest to this because it's the one thing that I can't quit in my real life. But it's like my slots habit where I come in and I hit this big one right away and I'm up like 50% of what I deposited. And I'm slowly watching it just go all the way down to 0. Like, am I really not going to at least make my money back again? Like, I can't even get halfway. And this is where I think, oh, no, you had last week. Don't forget the 21st, right? Last week, not most recently, against the Steelers. And then it's just like, bang, you get a little bit back to bring your hopes up, and you blink and your money's gone. Well, I'm not. I'm going to cash out before I'm flat broke. I've got other guys I can go to. I've got Elijah Moore and Jacoby Myers at this point. I'm more confident in both of those guys than I am Williams at this point.
He's been disappointing. Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
And what was it? Was Fitzpatrick out last game against the Steelers? It was busted coverage. That was the one big play he had late in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It took Minka Fitzpatrick being out and bad coverage there. No, it's it.
Yeah.
All right, let's wind down here. We'll look at week 13 on the waiver wire. You each have a pair to get to. I was going to throw Boston Scott out there just because of all the craziness. And I see Lofty's eyebrows like, what? Just the craziness.
I didn't even react to that.
Well, here's the thing, though. As much as it is crazy with Miles Sanders trying to figure things out, Jordan Howard's still out. They went to Boston Scott. They are going to Boston Scott for whatever reason. It wasn't even like game flow where Sanders was hurt or they had to. Scott is going to be involved even when Howard comes back. So I can't tell you he's going to put up huge numbers. Just somebody to think about. All right, let's wind down with your two. You got two each. Tara, once you start, Lofty will bring us home.
Yeah, we already talked about my first guy, Alexander Madison. Again, we've seen two games where Dalvin Cook was out and he got 25 and 26 carries. Both of those over 100 yards. He had 7 and 8 targets in those games for significant yards on the ground as well. I mean, assuming that Dalvin Cook's going to be out, this is the guy that I prioritize here because he is just a must start in any situation when Dalvin Cook is not going. And then my second guy, it's Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson, I really feel like this is the game that we needed to see from him. We got Cooper Kupp with, 10 targets. We got Odell with 10 targets on the field, 98% of the snaps. We've got Darrell Henderson had a pretty good game as well. Then you turn to Van Jefferson, still played 98% of the snaps, caught 3 of his 9 targets. The targets were incredibly encouraging and had that one huge touchdown. So again, I'm liking the value within this offense. It's a high-powered offense. They do have to throw. They're throwing a bit more because they're down a little bit more than we expected here too. So I like the role that he has. And even with Odell in there, it doesn't really matter to me which is the 2, which is the 3. I think that he's going to be productive. And again, Odell is playing through injuries. So I'm really liking Van Jefferson in his position in this offense.
I like both of them. Madison, best pickup of the week. I like Boston Scott too. I mean, Sanders has been getting banged up. I think Jordan Howard misses another week as well. And then they have a bye. So you could probably get one good week out of him against the Jets. I like it. I'm going to Dontrell Hilliard, but if you want to go to D'Onta Foreman, you could do that too. I was 1 week early on D'Onta Foreman when I said, I expect this guy to start getting the bulk of the carries. And then he didn't. And then the next week, the report is D'Onta Foreman's expected to get the bulk of the carry. And he does. So I don't know. Bit ahead of my time here. Didn't help you guys at all. But 19 carries yesterday. Dontrell Hilliard got 12. Here's the thing. This may sound wild, but they might both in deep leagues be startable. Not on the same, like you're not starting both these guys, but if you have McCaffrey and you can't get Madison or someone already has any of the good options that are on the waiver, you might want to look into this because look, they've got the Jaguars coming up. Jaguars offense is terrible. AJ Brown's on the IR. Julio Jones is on the IR. So now you're talking about like Des Fitzpatrick and Nick Westbrook. They don't have good pass catching options. They want to run the football. What was the score of yesterday's game? Do you guys remember the score? It was
38, 32,
38,
32.
Yeah, 36 to 13.
Oh, yeah, 13.
Oh,
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong game.
Yeah, they got trashed by the Patriots. And Foreman and Hilliard still combined for 31 carries, and they lost by 23 points. Jacksonville's offense, terrible. Yeah, we're getting out of here, Mike. Pittsburgh's run defense has been worse and worse, and their offense, as we saw against the Bengals, absolutely terrible. You may see these guys combined for, I'm not even kidding, 35, 40 carries in these coming matchups that'll take you into the postseason for your fantasy playoffs. So I like both of them. I think if you can get one or the other, grab them.
All right. That's my fault, Mike. We should have been out a little bit earlier. We appreciate everybody hanging with us. Remember, at It's Terra Time, at Lofty_D, at Shander Show for me, all three of us on Twitter. We'll see you on Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern. Thanks for hanging. Thumbs up, subscribe to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. And we appreciate you, really, for hanging with us. See you.
Peace.